Welcome back to another episode of Unheard Voice. As you can see, we have a very special guest today. We have the MVP of the 2022 National Brit Bowl Champions, Sam Bloomfield.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Thank you, Sam, and thank you for taking your time out to sit down and just having a little talk of your background in football itself.
Yeah.
Cool. So we're gonna start off with the easy, low level questions and just breeze through it as fast as we could possibly. So, how long have you been playing football?
20 years. I started for way back in 2002, playing five-a-side football with the Chorley Buccaneers.
Wow.
And then I sort of progressed through the age ranges. Started flag, junior five-a-side contact, then moved up to, at the time, the under-19s was 11-a-side contact. So I was fortunate enough to play 11-a-side contact for the Lancashire Wolverine Colts. And I think I probably played against a few guys who you know at the Farnham Knights in the 2009 national final for the under-19s. So guys like Dom Gould, JP was JP. Yeah, Joe Thompson. No Joe. JP went to Loughborough. Joe Thompson, Dom Gould, probably some more of those guys as well.
Wow.
I think you were on that Hertz team that won the national, weren't you?
Yes.
So there's quite a few familiar faces on that team that I recognise. That was a fantastic year for the Colts. We won every game. We didn't concede a single point all year until our second playoff game, where we conceded one touchdown and they missed the PAT. So we went into the national final having only conceded 6 points, and then that freakish Farnham team scored 18 on us and we scored none. So yeah, thanks for that, Joe Thompson. But and then and then after that progressed up to Lancashire Wolverine seniors, played there until 2016, and went until it was time to make a change, and then I moved to Manchester.
So yeah, to be fair, I actually have to sit there and actually agree with you. That team probably was a very freakish. The athletes like that Farnham Knights.
Loads of guys ended up in GB programs, playing abroad. Guys ended up on those Blitz and maybe even the Warriors teams where they were just back and forth. You never knew who was going to win back in those days. And loads of those Farnham guys were those boys. So hurts a little bit less now to look back at that team and think, okay, well, they were actually legit.
Yeah. See, now you said that, you said that there was a couple guys that hurt you, but you hurt me a couple years ago. But I'll get to that in a bit.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
I don't know what this is. Okay.
So have you always? So obviously you started 20 years ago. Was it always QB or was it? Oh
no.
Wasn't.
So I was a linebacker. I was a linebacker for years and years and years. All the way through five-a-side into 11-a-side juniors. Kind of played this hybrid safety linebacker type role. However, I always knew that I was a better offensive player, but I preferred defense. So I stuck with it as long as I possibly could. But in that 2009 under-19s championship year, they had GB trials, and the GB under-19s had just restarted with Steve Rains, who's now at Solent, as the head coach. And I knew that if I went for linebacker, going against guys like Dom Gould, I knew that I stood no chance. So I was like, okay, I will go and play one of my more natural positions, and I'll play tight end. And so I was fortunate enough, even though I hadn't played tight end ever, really, but I was better at catching the ball than I was at doing anything else. I was fortunate enough to make that squad, and Steve Rains and Ryan Baker, who's now at Tamworth and who's saw a lot of success with Birmingham Lions back when Tristan Varney was there. Tristan Varney. So I went on to play tight end for GB under-19s, which was a really cool experience, and that's where I got to know a lot of those Farnham boys really well. In fact, I hung around with them that whole trip to Poland and stuff like that. And only when the Lancashire Wolverines got to the Premiership, and we were playing our first year in the Premiership, did a couple of things happened, and it basically became clear to me that I wasn't good enough defensively to make the cut. I wasn't going to start defensively for the Lancashire Wolverines. So I thought, right, okay, the inevitable has happened. I'll now move to offense and play receiver. And then I had a lot of success at receiver. I was the Lancashire Wolverines leading receiver for, I think, 3 years in a row when we were in the Premiership, and we made the playoffs and played the Blitz and stuff like that. Wow. And then 2017 rolled around, where I moved to the Manchester Titans, and I essentially went along with the intention of playing wide receiver, but our quarterback, who was there, called Chris Payne, he was going to be missing our pre-season game. And at the time, the Titans were in Division 1. And we were having a pre-season game with the Merseyside Nighthawks, who at the time were the second best team in the Prem North behind Tamworth. They'd made the playoffs for the past 2 years. Wow. So they were a good side. Guys like Harry Routledge from the GB set up, and Mark Horton, long-time quality linebacker there. And so our quarterback was going to be missing, and I was the backup quarterback for Lancashire. So my offensive coordinator, Luke Carlton, had asked me, will you play quarterback for this preseason game? After that, you can go back to receiver. And I thought, oh, God, yes, sure, why not? So we went along to the preseason game, and I ended up passing for 5 touchdowns and running 2 in. Now, obviously, it's a preseason game, so you take things with a pinch of salt, but Luke was pretty happy with that. So he asked me if I wanted to stick it out at quarterback for Manchester. And after probably about 3 or 4 days of thinking about it, I decided, yes, sure, I'll do that. And the rest is history. We got promoted to the Premiership that year, in our first year with Manchester. And we built thereon. So I've only been playing quarterback properly for 5 years. This is my 5th.
So playing QB was an accident. It just happened.
Yeah. Obviously, I'd had some reps with Lancashire. When our starting quarterback went out injured, or he got ejected numerous times, because that's the kind of person he was. So I'd stepped in and played the likes of Jason Scott's Tamworth, before playing quarterback, and it never was pretty, but I managed to just about do an okay job. And then Luke basically built his system around a quarterback that wasn't a quarterback.
Wow. All right, hold on. I'm still trying to process the fact that it was an accident. You're living the dream of a lot of guys, that well, most of them probably want to play receiver or tight end, but the guys that want to say, "Oh, I could play QB," you have literally just lived that whole entire dream.
Yeah. If I could play any position to a really high standard, it would probably be safety. I love it. But it's just I don't have it. Sam Fossey, I could never.
Yes.
So
that beast of a character.
Yeah,
that is for sure. So obviously, as you started playing QB for Manchester in that Division 1 season, did you ever see yourself getting promoted that year?
I think it was only after a few games did I start to realise, oh, we're actually onto something here. Like, I thought that it would be more of like a 2 or a 3 year plan to get Manchester promoted. We literally, me and a few of the guys at UCLan University had moved from Lancashire over to Manchester. And we had loads of talent there. We did have loads of talent there, but it never really struck me as we'll come in and we'll immediately just get this team into the Premiership. But yeah, after a few games, starting to see the offense really putting up scores, and that's Luke Carlton's thing. Like he used to coach at UCLan, and he had like a 350 point offense in an 8-game year, and like he puts together an offense that just scores, and so I was in equal parts kind of surprised, but also like when I sat and thought about it, well, of course we can do this. We brought along a load of experienced football players to a club that already was making the playoffs in Division 1. And honestly, there was some difficult times at the start between like the culture change, because Luke comes in as offensive coordinator, and we have this whole Lancashire/UCLan culture that we've built and created, and we know what we want to do and how we want to do it. And Manchester obviously has their culture that's just established. So coming in, we're bringing in sort of 10 new guys who are established veterans of the sport and saying, do things this way. It's difficult to make those changes, but people bought in because they saw the success. They saw in preseason camp, they go, you know what? We're actually seeing things here that we're not used to seeing an offense, performing at this level this early on in the preseason.
Wow.
They were surprised by that.
Huh. So well, from what I remember of your 2013 season, it was really good. It was really amazing, and obviously getting promoted. But before we jump into that championship game that you had, how did you discover football in the UK? Was it always something that you had always paid attention to, or did you just stumble across it?
No, I stumbled across it. I'd been playing rugby for years, high school and club level. And one of my mates said, my brother is playing in a national final for the Bristol I think they were still the Aztecs back then. This is 2001 or 2002 or something. He was like, Bristol Aztecs are playing in a national final. My brother plays defence for them. Do you want to come along and watch? Now, us living in Lytham, like an hour above Manchester, like it's quite a journey, but I wasn't doing anything that Saturday, and I was like, yeah, sure, I'll come down with you. Started watching it, and I was immediately like, I have to play this sport. Like it's like rugby, like on acid.
Yeah.
And it just really attracted me. And so we started looking around for teams, and we found, eventually we found Chorley. We were very close to going to Liverpool's flag team, but then we just at the last minute we found Chorley, which had only been set up for, I think at the time, maybe 3 or 4 years. And we went down and immediately just hooked, even though it was flag, and I was playing contact football.
Yeah.
Just hooked on the strategy of the sport, on the just it's human chess, isn't it? So just loved it.
Huh. So you found football by accident again because of your friend.
Yeah.
You became quarterback by accident because your quarterback couldn't make a preseason game. Like
just winging it all.
You're literally basically the guy that just everything just falls in the right spot at the right time.
Do you know, it's funny you say that. My girlfriend constantly says to me, everything works out for you. Everything always works out. Constantly says that I'm very, very lucky with everything. And I guess this is
I believe it.
Just another, another example of that happening, I suppose.
Oh my gosh. So I'm going to go back to that 2017 season. So who did you play in the playoffs in the first round?
We played Sandwell Steelers at home. At Bellevue, we played Sandwell Steelers, and that was a pretty good game. That this was back when Sandwell didn't quite have Tristan at that point, but they had a really solid foundation. Yes. Defensively, they were very good. So we played Sandwell in that first round. Yeah.
Okay, and then obviously in the finals, you played the London Olympians.
What's that? Oh dear. Yes, we did play the London Olympians.
Yes, and I remember that final.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
What position were you playing?
I was the end.
You were
I was sitting at the
D-end.
bench. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I remember that game.
Yeah, I mean, obviously from our perspective, great game. Really enjoyed it. I'd be interested to get your perspective on this actually, because we, um, we prepared really hard for it. We thought London-based team. We know they're going to be tough.
Yes.
We got into the game. We played it. We were surprised about how on the aerial passing game was. We thought you guys would do a good job of shutting that down. But then we went and watched the game afterwards, and absolutely no disrespect to Neo at all. We watched his interview, and one of the things we found most curious about that interview was that Neo said that you guys haven't really been focusing too much on what Manchester does well, but more focusing on what you guys do well and what you guys don't do so well. And I was kind of thinking, is that subliminally telling me that you guys haven't really watched much tape on us? Or am I just, well, not I, but are we just reading into that? What's your
So,
thoughts about kind of the build-up and the prep to that game?
if I'm gonna be honest, that game, the whole setup for that whole game was abysmal.
Really?
It was really abysmal. I think we came down, so didn't do much game film. Like we didn't even get. I don't think we were given game film on that game, and
Oh my gosh.
didn't get anything. So we weren't even prepared for that. We weren't even really prepared. And then obviously some of us, I drove up there. It's got stuck in traffic because there was animals on the motorway. So that didn't help. I was chilling on the M1 for like a good 3 hours waiting for that to pass by. Got up there, but then it was, I don't know, to be honest. You lot were definitely a lot more prepared. We weren't as prepared as we should have been for that game. It was pretty shocking, especially when we ended up walking to some field around the back, and you lot got onto the actual main field. It was just like, what are we doing? Like, no one knew. No one knew. And what made it worse is that not all of our team had been in that sort of pressure, sort of that
Yeah.
experience of playing in a championship game. So it was like, to some people, this is the first ever time they've ever been in a game where there's a championship on the line, and they didn't know how to handle it as much. But I would have to admit, like, I don't think that we really were completely prepared for that game. And hey, you lot walked all over us in that game, and I have to admit that was very humbling experience for sure. So for me, it was just, yeah. For the team that we had what, majority rookies that had just started that playing that year, and obviously you had like at least 12, 13 vets that had played beforehand on both offense and defense. So it was that type of game. But yeah, I even listened to that interview. I didn't even know that that's what was said.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember coming into the prep for the game, and you guys had some really athletic DBs and some really big D tackles.
Yeah.
And our key to the game was basically make the DBs wrong and make sure that we deal with the tackles. And one thing that we realized very early on is that they hated being cut blocked. The D line hated it. And I think we talked at the halftime or at some point in the game, and basically mentioned that when we were watching the tape, we don't really remember seeing people cut blocking you guys very much. And we were thinking the South must not cut block very often, whereas we cut block all the time. So we just amped up our cut blocking, and the DBs played slightly differently to what we thought they were going to. It wasn't man, I don't believe, but it certainly looked more like a man look than we were expecting, which we basically sat there then and said, okay, well, we're going to take shots and it'll either pay off or it'll be incomplete. The only frustrating thing for me about that game is that there was one player, he's our leading touchdown scorer on the year, number 22, James Nunes. He didn't score in the final. and we kept trying to force the ball to him and keep, even though we were like up by like 30 odd points or whatever, we were like, we need to get James to score, we need to get Nunes to score. So we kept forcing it and ended up throwing 2 interceptions, but we move on.
Yeah, you lot ended up getting that big victory. But yeah, I think that game, I'm not gonna deny it, that game was bad. Just and I think you probably know one of the D tackles, Charles.
Yes.
Yeah, he was one of the tackles, and I have to admit, he's probably gonna kill me for saying this on the video, but he absolutely was fuming at your tackle, your guards just consistently cutting. He was pissed off. But
he kicked off at one point. I remember him kicking off, and he was like, he was screaming about, "Okay, this is how you guys are going to play, is it? This is how?" And we were like, "Yeah, it is. Look at you, you've lost it."
Yeah, I think the tackle tried to cut me once, and I was like, "Nah, I'm not dealing with this."
Yeah,
you just push your ass down and just try and get down. But that game, as badly as we lost that game, it was a fun game just for the experience for some of the guys to actually. And again, some of the guys have gone on to play for Warriors, and they're playing abroad in Germany, France.
Yeah.
So, hey, some of the guys have done something else with it, especially as they're young, as young they are. So, obviously, with Manchester coming up from Division 1 to Prem, that whole first, obviously your first Prem season there, I can't remember if you lot finished second in that division that year, and you lot obviously ended up playing the Warriors. Correct?
Yeah. So we finished second. We got slaughtered by Tamworth twice, something like 60-7, and then like 50-odd to 14.
Wow.
So yeah, 2018 was our kind of first year in the Prem, and first game of the year was that rude awakening to Tamworth at home. And then ended up finishing second on the year. Went down to Warriors, and that was another. Basically a wake-up call to say you're not there yet. You're not there.
Okay. Yeah. So what would you describe as what would you say would have been your worst ever sporting performance?
I mean, there's one in recent history. The Bristol semi-final game this year.
Okay.
So basically, we had a game plan. Bristol played a somewhat good defense to play us in. Okay, there's still obviously weaknesses in that defense, and we did manage to exploit them. It just took us a bit longer to exploit them than we would have liked. We were up 17-0 at the half, I think, but by that point, I'd thrown 2 interceptions in the first half. And then in the second half, our mentality really is like, don't play conservative, don't play to like survive. You play to win. You have to play to win.
Yeah.
And obviously that applies to, that London game that we played at the end of the national final as well. And so we caught the plays where I threw an interception. There was 2 that were good decisions but bad execution. So basically we threw, they're like hitch and goes, or a screen and the other receiver fakes the block and then runs a go.
Okay.
So the first one, the safety's playing quite flat. Sorry, the safety's playing quite off. And so what I needed to do was I needed to bang that ball in there in a hole shot on the sideline, in between the cornerback's underneath zone and the safety zone over the top. But what I did is I floated the ball out a little too much. And the safety made, honestly, an absolute freakish play, tiptoe sideline interception. And then the other one in the second half, we did the exact same thing, but to the opposite side. This time, I'm thinking, right, last time I needed to fire that ball in on a hole shot rather than float it out. So I'm thinking, right, fire this ball in on a hole shot. This safety plays it differently, and he plays flat. And so I go to bang that ball in. Last second, I see him creep from just behind my tackle, because obviously my viewpoint is a bit skewed, and my left tackle is 6'7". So yeah, I fire that ball in the hole, and he comes and picks it off. And so 2 good play calls, but if I'd executed them properly, they'd have been fantastic. However, I didn't execute them properly. So yeah, two good play calls with bad execution, and then 2 bad decisions from me. Basically resulted in those interceptions. And fortunately, the rest of the team kind of rallied, and when I wasn't having, a good day, because I threw 10 interceptions on the year.
Wow,
and so I was, in a completely non-cocky way, like protecting the football. I did a good job of it. It's tough in the Premiership to not concede turnovers, especially when you've got that Tamworth defence. Edinburgh's defence is no joke, but then to go into the semi-finals and throw 4 interceptions, I'm stood there with about 5 minutes left to go thinking, if we lose this game, it's because I have lost us this game. Fortunately, and I'm aware that with all the glory of being a quarterback, the pressure is insane, and I did not have 2 good weeks leading up to that game. I got my whole game plan and I got my whole decision-making process wrong. I changed from what I'm used to, and I watched more film than I've ever watched before in a 2-week period, disappeared into this dark hole where just I was distant from my girlfriend, and I just became so focused on this game because of the anxiety of it. That I just was different. And so, yeah, it just got to the point where we're 5 minutes left in the game, and I'm thinking I could have cost us this game here. Fortunately, defense, as always, gets us the ball back. I managed to make a couple of redeeming plays, and I came away from it thinking, okay, I've done enough here to redeem myself, hopefully, and to put us in a position to win. And then the defense does what they do, and we managed to come out of that game winners. And a lot of lessons learnt for me there, even as a 20-year vet who's watched film for 15 years. A lot of lessons learnt about my process and about what I need to do to be in the best possible position and best possible mentality going into a game.
Okay, well, that's I can understand why you would. Especially because it was a game that it was sort of everyone was judging you lot's season. Everyone was no one actually expected you lot to be in that point, and especially if you had lost, it'd have been like, well, the North ain't done it again. Here we go back to the South. The South has control over the
exactly. And you've heard the sound clips. I heard our guys speaking to you at the final.
Yes.
You know that, and the thing is even though that one person made that comment, there's a ton of people out there who believe that if Bristol was in the North, they would win that division, or if Blitz were in the North, they would win that division. And it's just a case of, we take it. We love bulletin board material. We take as much of it as we possibly can, and we save it and we store it and we listen to it on repeat. And then it's just a case of actions speak. Doesn't matter what we say online or what arguments we put together about how many points we scored, about how many points we conceded. Nothing matters apart from the result. So
yeah, that is true. Nothing else it matters. So, seeing as we actually brought that up, how did it feel when obviously it was all over social media? Obviously, they don't understand the hype about Manchester and all of that. When you heard one of the people from Exeter Knows say that, did you all obviously you said that you lot bullet point it or bullet board it.
Bulletin board,
yeah. Was it like the talk? Was it as it got closer to like the semi-finals and the finals? Did those sort of voice notes and stuff start playing back in you lot's heads, or was it a conversation piece?
Oh, we love it. We absolutely love it. literally throughout the year, we will save video clips, images, whatever it is. I've got a folder on my phone that is called Bulletin Board, and it is just full of stuff. I can't show you too much, but
No.
but yeah, it's just basically like bulletin board folder on my phone, and it's full of stuff from people who've said things about us. And we basically, it'll come around, and let's say we've got, I'm not saying that this team definitely said something, or a member of the team said something, but let's say we had Sheffield coming up, okay, or Edinburgh coming up. Those things will start circulating in our group chats again, or we'll start talking about it privately and at practice. And even some of those historic things that were said about us years ago will come to the forefront and stuff like that. And it just drives us. Like, if ever I can find an opportunity to either be an underdog or be disrespected, I want it. I will twist and turn words to find a way to feel like I've been disrespected or feel like I've been made out to be an underdog. And that's realistically the mentality of lots of people at Manchester. You know, when we first won the Premiership, when we first got into the Premiership, there was that famous quote of that guy who said, "Are Manchester going to be the worst team in Premiership history?" He was a Leicester Falcons fan, former player, and he posted that on a public forum on Facebook, and obviously, we loved it. We lived for it. Like, there's no anger there. It's thank you for giving us exactly what we wanted. And the shame is that teams like the Warriors, London Warriors, they don't give you any bulletin board material. There's nothing out there, so you have to find your own stuff. Hence why X's and O's quote came about, because no one from London said that, but we needed to find a way, or at least some of the more veteran leaders on the team like to find a way to be disrespected or to be doubted somehow. So that starts circulating, and people get the chip on the shoulder again, and they say, "Oh, here we go. Little old Manchester's not going to do anything. Please keep writing us off." And you can hear that from John Homer, the head coach, on his post-game interviews, where he sounds like a baby, crying about the North being compared to the South. But it's just kind of the way that we like it. We like to be disrespected.
Oh, okay. So, we'll talk about next season soon. So, obviously, this year, all right. So, you played Tamworth the first game of the season. Now, that big win, I have to admit, that was a big win for you guys. Now, did you expect to win it in such a strong fashion, or was it? It's one of those ones.
So So we know that we're capable of scoring loads of points. Like, it's what we've done under Luke since 2017. Like, it's always been 300 points or more on the year. Tamworth's defense, for those people who haven't played it, is not like any other defense. It's not like the Warriors' defense. It's not like Bristol's defense. It's different. There's a different feel. There's a different atmosphere. There's a different energy, and they do things differently. So where you would expect, if they're playing cover 3 or they're playing cover 4 read, where you would expect somebody to be, they might play that completely differently and move their chess pieces in completely different ways. And it is really tough. So we were confident that we could score points on this defense. We knew that we could. But what I'll say is, at the first game of the year, you're never too sure how you're going to do. No matter how many preseason games you play against whatever opponents you play or what you look like in practice, you're never sure. So when you come up first game of the year against the team that's won the North for the past X amount of years, they've got this famous defense, literally 14, 15 players who are on the GB squad or who have previously been on the GB squad. The challenge ahead of you. The team was confident that we would win the game, and the team was confident that we could score points on them. I'm not sure whether I would have put that scoreline down. But I'm also not surprised by it, if you get what I mean. I think the second game is the game that I was surprised by.
Yeah, the 27-21 game. So what happened in that game? Was it just, were they a lot more on form? Did you look like drop the ball a bit, or was it just?
So there's the one thing I hate is when I come onto one of these and I hear an opponent or even someone from my team talk about the excuses or the reasons why they lost, who was missing, who was that. So what I'll say is the first thing I'll talk about what happened on the day. I think Tamworth were definitely more interested in that game than we were. They came out and they were juicy, they were noisy, they weren't deflated from the first loss. They had their new quarterback, Josh Alsibrook, who's 19 years old, ton of arm talent in the GB program, really talented kid, and they'll have been buoyed by that, and so they came out and they were juicy. I don't know at what point these things happened in the game, but we lost our starting defensive end to injury. We lost our starting defensive tackle to injury. We lost our safety to a controversial ejection. The nicest guy ever in the world, who would never punch anybody, was having a bit of a do once with somebody on the floor. The refs seemed to believe that he punched. He didn't punch, but there was certainly some not very polite words being said on the ground. His name's Alex Eager, so lots of people listening know who Eager is. And I would wager that they'd all be happy to put money on that he didn't punch anybody. But these things happen. We lost our starting inside linebacker to quite a bad groin injury. I think it ended up hemorrhaging or something like that, or he ended up having to, and he was out for maybe 4 or 5 games. Jesus. We also, this is the nice one, we lost our other starting inside linebacker. His teeth came through the bottom of his lip here. He was wearing a gum shield, much to everybody believes that he wasn't, but he was. Whatever happened when he hit the ground, his helmet came up, his chin strap came up to here, and his bottom teeth went through his lip. And there's some fantastic pictures out there of him with blood all down his face here and all down his white jersey. And so he's got some nice stitch in there. His name's Alex Cooper, and he's part of the GB setup. So he was out of, the blue versus white game. He wasn't able to take part in that because he had huge stitches here under his mouth. So, we lost 2 D linemen. We lost both of our inside linebackers. We lost our starting safety, and our cornerback, Ricky, who is insanely talented, number 1 in the national finals. He's got dreads, easily recognizable. I think he was having either cramps or problem with his groins, and so he was coming in and out of the game, and they will have seen that, and they'll have picked on the DBs who came in to replace Ricky. And I think that every touchdown they scored was when Ricky wasn't on the field. Wow. So there's all of the shitty, I don't know if I can swear on this. Can I swear?
No, you can swear. Of course you can.
Okay, good. There's all the shitty excuses that nobody likes to hear. Ultimately, Tamworth just beat us. They just beat us. We played our worst game offensively. They played really well defensively. We played our worst game defensively, and they played really well offensively, and we made some absolutely horrendous special teams decisions. They just outplayed us. They were more up for the game, and they deserved the win. Would it have made a difference if we had those players back? I honestly don't know. Maybe it wouldn't, but we needed it. We probably needed that punch in the face to say, go away, reset, go and wallow and figure out why you've just got your arse handed to you. Yeah. And it did really help.
Funny enough, your safety said the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Your safety said the exact same thing.
Yeah, and the exact same thing happened to us in 2017, the year we got promoted to the Premiership. We played Yorkshire 3 times that year. First time we beat them in a close game. Then we played them at their place, and they beat us, and we were devastated. We were certain that we weren't going to lose, and it forced us to move from a 2-back offense into the spread offense that you now see. So one of the best things that's ever happened in Manchester Titans history was losing to the Yorkshire Rams in 2017. So thanks, Yorkshire, because you created Luke's offense as it is now.
Thanks, Yorkshire.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, obviously, let's jump back to that 2017 finals. When that game was finished, and obviously you lot were crowned champions of Division 1, did you not feel like there was a chip off your shoulder? Like you finally won that championship, you're now in the Premier? Because I remember talking to your head coach after that game, and he goes, I've been working at this for like 5 years, and it's finally happened. He was just, I know he was very happy, but how was the rest of the changing room? Because obviously I know some people they keep their emotions inside until it finally hits. But how were your emotions that day?
So, I'm an emotional guy. Like I wear my heart on my sleeve. I'm very emotional, and you know, I think that it was really elation. The Leicester semi-final before that to get promoted, that was where the emotions were for the players. Gaining promotion was where, you know, you had some people who were in tears, who'd been working towards this for years. We, you know, me and my little U-Clan lot, we'd only come along this year, so we hadn't been struggling like this through Division 2, through Division 1, stuff like that. So there was a lot of emotions at that Leicester game. The London Olympians final was more of like a bonus. It was elation. Oh, we've won it, and now we get some silverware and stuff like that. Like, and in terms of how we felt about the Premiership at that point, we knew that because that year Tamworth won the national final in the Prem. It was the same year. And so we knew that we were going to be taking on the national champs, and we were really excited for that because we felt, I can mostly speak for offense, we felt as though we could score points on Premiership defences because we'd done it in the pre-season against Merseyside, because we knew that we had a high-flying offense with talented guys who had played in the Premiership for years. So we were excited by the idea of it. And then we got a rude awakening first game of 2018 against Tamworth at home.
Oh man. So So obviously after that 2018, when you started your first season in Premiership at 2018, and then I believe there was a GB sort of tryout situation. Did you think that you were good enough? I believe that they did have tryouts that year. Did you try to go to that tryouts during that season after your first year in Prem? Did you feel like you were ready for that, or you were good enough to get into that situation?
I did feel like I was ready for that. I applied for the trials, and they didn't accept me for a trial. Every other, and here's where the bulletin board material comes out.
Yeah.
Every other Premiership North quarterback got an invite to a trial, but I did not.
So did they give a reason?
Well,
why?
I can. Yeah, you know, the usual stuff that I hear: too big, too slow, and the main thing is that I sidearm the ball. So
Matthew Stafford sidearms the ball.
So does Philip Rivers. Yeah, trust me, I know. Okay. So basically, the critiques that I got, and I have these saved on my phone, and I regularly write things on tape on my wrists when I'm playing. Is that it just wouldn't be possible for me to make the throws that I need to make at the top level of UK football or at Great Britain level of football to be able to basically cope at that level, to succeed at that level. So that's just been a constant chip on my shoulder until obviously finally we enter the current GB situation. But yeah, they didn't want to take me for a trial. One of the coaching staff who was there at the time knew that through our coaching rivalry, because he coached at Sheffield Hallam, and I coached at U-Clan, and at the time we were both Division 1 teams, and it was year back and forth, really close games. And he liked me as a coach, so he asked if they could bring me in as an assistant coach for the GB team.
Oh.
So I went along and I was a GB assistant coach for a little while, but basically I was just a cone placer and stuff like that, and that was the role that I'd accepted. So I wasn't sat there, coaching positions or anything like that. I was just kind of present at GB practice. Yeah.
Oh, okay, just the help to.
Exactly. And so, I was bitter. I was bitter about it, and I was watching the guys who were at practice, and all respect to those guys. I'm not saying by any means that they're not good or that they're bad. I just thought that I could do a better job. And then it came the point where they had a camp before a tournament, and they needed a camp arm, and so they asked me to come along. And so I paid a load of money. I went along to the GB camp. They brought in a guest American coach, and he just absolutely wiped the floor with me for a day, just talking about how bad my technique was and about how, he was joking. He was jovial about it. He was jokey about it, but he was dead serious. He hated the way that I threw the ball. However, one thing that he couldn't deny is that I get the ball out with zip. I've got the ball out fast. And so when we did those drills where it was catch, throw, he was really impressed. But ultimately, I came away from that whole experience feeling really, disrespected. I felt like I'd shown the results. I'd shown that I can do it at the Premiership in 2018. Yes, maybe not against Tamworth at that point, but I feel like that was more of our whole team needs to get up to scratch rather than the quarterback is letting us down.
Wow.
So, yeah.
And who was the head coach at that time of the GB?
It was Mike Callan, who, and I have a lot of respect for Mike, and Mike always had a lot of time for me and stuff like that. I think it was more the guys who were in charge of the offense, the guys who were in charge of quarterback, they couldn't look past the sidearm. And I'm sure if you spoke to them now, they'd still say, it's not good for national program, or we can't justify having someone who sidearms the ball. But again, for me, nothing matters but the result. And if I'm churning out results, then I must be doing something right.
Yeah, I couldn't really see what the issue is if that's the point, but that's long gone now. You are now obviously one of the 4 QBs that are a part of the setup now.
Yeah, in the 75-man squad, which is soon to be cut down to 45. There's 4 of us currently. There's me, there's James Cook, who used to play for the Exiles. He does lots of the international pathway program stuff. Sam Huxtable, who used to play for Swansea and Tamworth. I think he did some time in Canada at a college. And he was at, I always mispronounce this, Alegu Comets.
Yeah, I think that's around.
Algau.
I'm not.
Hopefully I've not butchered that.
I'll probably get it wrong.
Yeah, he played quarterback there for a year. And also Josh Alzebrook from Tamworth, the young kid who just got a world of talent. So we're the 4 quarterbacks. All really sound guys. We bounce ideas off each other. We talk about what we did right and did wrong in practice and how we can improve both individually and as a unit. And honestly, from being part of, and I know that I wasn't a part of it in the same way as I am now, but being part of the previous GB regime and being part of this one, there's just really good vibes around this one for me, like a really good team cohesive feel around it. And maybe that's because I'm familiar with lots of the faces there from Tamworth and stuff like that. Maybe Warriors Blitz guys might have felt that same way about the previous setup. But just my own personal experience, I really enjoy this setup. And I'm not just saying this because there's a chance that Jason Scott will hear this, because me and Jason, have plenty of talks, so I'm sure he wouldn't mind if I gave him a little bit of stick every now and again. But it's just good, and I think if you speak to most of the people who are there, it feels different. Feels good.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So, would you obviously the Ireland game got scrapped because of they couldn't play in there, and then obviously you're meant to play Russia, which for obvious reasons
Yeah.
that's not happening. So technically you only get what this weekend for your GB training session, and then next week you'll find out, and then in about a month's time you'll fly out to Italy, if I'm correct.
Yeah, so this Sunday coming, we got to practice, and then I believe that the coaches will be letting the 45-man squad know who's made it to that squad, and then we have another practice early October,
Okay.
but that's just for the 45. So I say the 45-man squad will have another practice, and then we fly out to Italy. Against the European champions. So what better way to
Ooh,
what better way to
ooh.
start out, you know?
Yeah, and if you don't put on a good show, that might start giving people a lot of hope that the GB system and the unit is actually starting to develop a lot more.
Yeah.
So obviously, I know obviously you want to be a part of that system. You want to be a part of that 45. Would it mean more to you if you got named like start? You made it and you got to be able to captain and start for your country.
It would. There is nothing. If that's what happened, if I was named a starter and I was named a captain, other than winning a European Championship or something like that, there's nothing more for me to achieve in this sport in this country. Like I have achieved everything that I could possibly want to.
Yeah.
More, and all of those things that I now or that I then would have achieved would be things that I had hoped and dreamed, and then those dreams died years ago. When I was at Lancashire Wolverines and we were in the Premiership playoffs getting battered by the Blitz, I thought, this is awesome. We're in the playoffs. I wasn't sat there thinking, well, we got battered by the Blitz and I'm miserable about it,
Yeah.
because it was just, of course we did. It's the Blitz, of course that happened, and never in a million years did I think as either a linebacker or a receiver would I get into GB. God, I tried, but
Yeah.
it just wasn't on the cards for me. And then when I moved to quarterback and I got rejected from quarterback for GB, I thought it's just not going to happen for me. At the time I was like, I'm 28 years old now, and it's just not on the cards for me to win a national championship at the Premiership and to play for GB. So to have things go the way that they have been going the past sort of 2 years, there's nothing more that I want than to pull on that jersey just at least one time and just play at that level, and to just come away from it and say, yeah, I did it, and I was able to do it, and I wasn't out my depth. I wasn't like some, I don't know, pity pick or anything like that. Like I came in, I did a good job, and now I've paved the way for Jason's 5-year plan and for guys like Josh Alzebrook to come in, develop in that system, and just take GB to where it can go.
Yeah.
I've always captained every team I've ever been part of, and I wouldn't say that being a captain for GB is like on my mind, but it's something that I would absolutely love. Like it would be a lifelong dream realized.
Okay. Yeah. I could imagine that. But obviously that this weekend is obviously the main key one, with everyone getting there, everyone being there. Everyone's probably going to be balling out because the season's over and no one has anything to really. Because what most of everyone that's going to be playing for GB are either coaching their uni league. Hardly any should be playing.
Yeah,
A handful.
there's not. Yeah, there's quite a few University of Nottingham guys there, and some UE Bullets guys. But for the most part, everybody should be in a situation where they're not really playing football at the minute, or they're just entering into their uni pre-seasons. I don't think that there's a ton of coaches on the playing staff.
Yeah.
So people should be relatively, well, I don't want to say healthy because obviously you get things lasting over from the season, but people should be, somewhat prepared for an intense session. I imagine the coaches will have it on their mind. They also don't want to pick up any injuries, so they'll be keen to manage that, I assume. But one last session. You can't, people have said to me, and I'm fine if Jason hears this. People have said to me, "Oh, you performed so well in the national final. Like you just won a national final, you won MVP. You're bound to make the squad, but you just cannot count your chickens. My performance at my club does not correspond to how well I can run the offense that Jamos runs at GB.
Yeah.
So, and it's a tough offense. There's a lot of the same philosophies that I'm used to, and throwing a hitch is throwing a hitch, but there's lots of little nuances and changes and differences that mean that playing quarterback or maybe probably any position at GB and playing at your club, it's different.
Yeah, I can agree with that. So I like doing this. I do this a lot, and some people have hated me for it so far, and it puts them in a sticky situation because it's very difficult. So I want you to give me your starting 11 offensive players and starting 11 defensive players, or people that you have played with, or people that you have played against, or no. That includes GB, Tamworth, Lancashire, UClan.
Oh my God!
The best 11.
Get the whiteboard out.
The best 11. Also, you cannot put yourself in any position.
Okay, good, because I played most of them. So.
And you get to pick. You pick whatever formation you want for both offense and defense.
Okay, right. So offensively is probably going to be easier for me to pick. So I can pick people from other teams. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. God. All right. Quarterback. I'm choosing Tristan Varney.
Okay.
Guy is got a cannon arm. I mean, his knees are his biggest weakness, unfortunately.
Yes.
Yeah. But if he had some some fresh knees, he's unstoppable. Tristan Varney just understands offense and defense. The coverages that he's seeing so well. Yeah. He's a fantastic person as well. So Trist would be my quarterback. Running back. God, I'm going to upset a lot of people here. My God.
Yes.
Okay.
Ready. Let's go.
All right.
But I do have to admit, I did give Sam an extra player at running back, so you can do 2 running backs.
Okay.
I did give him 2. So I'll allow you with 2.
Okay. I'm going to go. One of them will be Thomas Campbell, TC. He played at Stirling. I think he played at Edinburgh for a little while. I think he's now playing at, God, I'm going to butcher this again, Alegu Comets.
Yeah.
Algau. The guy at GB practice, he comes in and he's an absolute freak. Like, he essentially can carry the offense. And we're running spread, so...
Damn, that's a lot.
Yeah, so TC is like freakish baller. The other one, I would have to go with my good friend Joe Nicholson, and he's number 33 for Manchester. Joe has a really bad time with injuries. He always seems to pick one up at least once in the season. Probably because his running style is really aggressive. His nickname is Mean Joe. But when he's on it, Joe's about 6'2". He probably weighs about 90 kilograms, and he is just pure muscle. He's absolutely rapid. He's just phenomenal. If you were to go back and watch some of our highlights from this year, he's in those highlights, and at number 33, he's just a really fantastic player, and he's in the GB setup as well. And he didn't get to play in the national final because he picked up a bit of an injury that's held him out. But he's awesome. I will say that Tom Jones, he will be on people's
honourable mention.
minds. He will be on people's minds for years to come. If he sticks around in the UK, even if he doesn't, he'll be part of that GB program. He's phenomenal. He's the back from the final.
Okay. The one with the hurdle, the one with that beautiful hurdle.
The one with the hurdle, yes.
Oh,
yeah.
Boy.
He was at the NFL Academy and he came through the Manchester Under-19s team, so there's a lot of pride there with Tom Jones. I call him Tom the Truth Jones. So, wide receiver, this is so tough because there's been... Okay, I'm going to take two of my boys because the chemistry that I have with them is there. Fair. So I'm just trust me, Adam. I'm just working from outside in. He'll be listening to this and he'll be fuming that I've said him first. But Max Gracie Ainscough was our number 13 in the national final.
Okay, yes.
And he's the guy on the outside who he didn't score, but I think what he ended up with was 13 catches for about 160 yards. So fantasy managers, he's the guy you want to pick up. He just went off, and he has done all year. And the feeling of the offense when Max is in is different, very, very different. He must be about 6'2" as well. He must be about 90 kilograms, and he's like pre-game repping his six-pack and all sorts. Like he's got arms bigger than my legs. He's just a freak. Very, very good player, and he's like 21 years old, maybe 22. He was at Bristol. He was at our under-19s with Tom Jones, and then he went down to Bristol Pride and trained and played there for a while. And he was already a fantastic player, but he turned into something completely different. And again, another guy who's now part of that GB squad. So yeah, he's very, very good. The other guy is Adam Bamba, who wore number 0 in the national final. He scored 2 of our deep touchdowns. So he's a great deep threat. Honestly, like his ability to run the deep ball and do well there is good. But really, where Fresh operates best is his ability to find space between the zones. His understanding of our system and how that affects the defense's coverages and their space. Fantastic receiver. So Adam Bamba, definitely. After that, okay, I'm going to go for... can I pick... They don't have to be English, do they?
No, they can be anyone that you've played with. Anyone that you know of.
Okay. So I'll go Harry Routledge is one of them. Harry Routledge used to be a GB receiver. He's now the head coach of Liverpool John Moores University. And he comes down every now and again and does like clinics with people. He did a clinic with Manchester for our receivers the other day. A few weeks before the final and stuff, and just gave us some tips and some hints that really did make a difference. Harry was a fantastic receiver for GB. I think he underrates how impactful he was to GB. I looked at him personally as GB's best receiver. Other people might think differently, but that's how I viewed Harry. And yeah, he's just a fantastic receiver. Really, really great body awareness and hands. And the other guy, historic guy, is Dave Saul. Do you know Dave Saul?
Yes.
Okay,
I know
so
David Saul.
Yeah, well, that's what my next line was going to be. You either hate him or you hate him.
Yeah.
I've known Dave for years, and we both know who each other are, but we don't generally talk that much or anything like that. But he's the kind of guy who if he's on your team, you probably love him. Yeah. If he's not on your team, you probably really don't like him. But he was just an awesome player. He was just nasty and aggressive, and he understood defense, and he just understands football. And I loved watching Dave Saul play, as long as it wasn't against my team.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Now
Okay.
for your offensive
Line. Okay.
Yes.
Right. So, left tackle, I'm picking Corey Deer. Corey is left tackle for Manchester. He was in the GB setup. Wasn't really able to commit the time to it, and so he fell behind, I think, a little bit, and eventually dropped out the 75-man squad. But I'm confident that if Corey did have the time, if he wasn't in his kind of current situation, that he would still be part of that GB setup. He's like 6'7", and he just has such range. I think he's been playing since 2013 or 2014. I'm not sure. It's one of those two. And he played university football for 4 years, and he played Manchester Titans football. That's my cat. And he's never conceded a sack. Ever. Bearing in mind, we're playing against Tamworth. We've played against London Warriors 3 times now. He's never really conceded a sack, ever. He played for GB. He played 2 games for GB. He's never conceded a sack. So
that's very, very wow.
Yeah, and as I'm sure you can imagine, the pressure each year builds and builds and builds. So, yeah, Corey
wins it. Damn.
Yeah, exactly. Centre, I'll go my centre, Johnny Morehouse. He was part of the GB setup for a short time, and then I think for whatever reason he ended up falling out of that setup. But yeah, he's short. He's about 5'10", 5'11". He's built, and he is very, very aggressive. To the point where people will call him a dick and stuff like that. He's one of those guys like Dave Saul. If he's on your team, you'll love him because he'll fight for you. If he's not on your team,
you want a centre that's going to be ruthless and vicious. You don't want no centre that's going to be patty cake. What's the point?
No, exactly. Your interior line better be aggressive. Like, you can have guys on the edge. Like, Corey's not like crazy aggressive. He just has such range and such technique that he doesn't need to be aggressive. Yeah. It'd be nice to have a good aggressive tackle, but your interior line, they better be aggressive. So, right tackle. Now, obviously, I'm thinking about my right tackle at Manchester, but I'm trying to think if there's anybody else that I've played with or against. I tell you what, a guy who baffles me, Johnny. I hope I say his name right. Johnny Allred or Aldred. He plays right tackle for Tamworth, and he must be about 5'11" or maybe even 6 foot. Sorry if I got that wrong, Johnny. And he looks like he has the build of like a receiver. Now he does have sneaky like strength. I can see his biceps. You know, I can tell he lifts. But he does not have an offensive line build at all. And I remember in 2018, the first time we played Tamworth with Manchester, I remember watching one of our good DNs on the sideline. I remember hearing someone say, "Watch our DN absolutely tee off on this tiny tackle here." His technique is flawless. He's and he's lovely as well. He's a very nice guy. But yeah, he's got exceptional technique, and he is also part of the GB setup, and very, very impressive guy who just somehow he makes it work, even though he doesn't look like a tackle at all. But yeah, really impressive. Okay, wow. my two guards. God. Okay, I'll go with a guy. Right now, he might be at the back end of his career, but at one point, a guy from Manchester, he did play for Manchester at one point actually, but never when I was there. He played for Lancashire. His name's JJ Worrell. And he was part of the GB setup at some point and stuff like that. And he came to play at UClan for a year. He was like a full-grown man picking on kids. Yeah, like
I've known a couple that does that.
That's exactly the kind of person he is. Yeah, he was great. I think he's probably at the back end of his career now. He's finishing off his career in Lancashire, and I think he loves it there. And fair play to him. But yeah, he was very, very good guard. Other guard. I'm going to go with. It's tough to go away from Manchester, you know. I'm going to go with Manchester's left guard. His name's Lucas Christofiak. And he played for Coventry University throughout their years where they got promoted. They won the Div 1 National Championship, and then the Div 2 National Championship, the Div 1 National Championship, and then I think he left and he went to play for Razorbacks. Ravenscroft. It's a German. They were GFL 2, and in the year that he went there, they got promoted to GFL 1. And he played for Tamworth as well for a little while. And then he moved further up north. Decided to come to us. He was traditionally a tackle, but we moved him inside because we wanted our best 5 linemen on the line, and we felt like Lucas could make that transition, and he did, and he's been awesome. He's been fantastic, and I think that perhaps if he was to get his English passport, his British passport sorted out, then perhaps GB would show some interest in him. That's a lot of home picks there. I'm probably not thinking about people, but
it is your starting 11 offensive players, and hey, again, you know them best, so no one can really judge you. Only those that know them as well that could. But hey, you know them best. But before we do your defensive players, I'm gonna try take your mind off of it.
Okay.
Okay. So, as your team captain, as you led your team this season, were there ever moments where you didn't feel that you could lead them to the promised land? Did you ever doubt yourself at periods of time going forward?
I think coming away from that second Tamworth game, you have to sit there and say, pre-season we're sat there saying we will go to the national finals. We will go. Like we can do it as long as we play our game. You come away from that second Tamworth game where you don't really get much going offensively, can't stop anything defensively, and you can't do anything special teams. You say, what chance do we stand? Even if we get to the semi-finals. We figured that we would get to the semi-finals. That's not us being cocky. That's just based on the results that we'd had so far and our confidence in ourselves. And you get to that point where you say, okay, well, we get to the semi-finals and we either host Blitz or Bristol, or we go down to London. If we can only generate this level of offense and we can't do anything defensively, then how on earth are we going to stand any chance in the semi-final when all the pressure's on, when you are playing against the best of the South, So I didn't necessarily doubt. It wasn't self-doubt about me necessarily. Okay. It was more doubt about, are we what we think we are? Are we at that level? Unfortunately, as I said, that Tamworth game was the punch in the mouth. It's the wake-up call. It's wiping the slate clean. And the captains, we have positional captains. So there's actually 8 of us, and we just rotate who goes out for coin toss and stuff like that. Okay. But it means that the players will feed into their captains. And it also means that the coaches will feed their directives or their opinions to the captains, who will then filter that through to the players. So as skeptical as I was about it, it actually really is a useful thing to do, is to have those positional captains as long as you get that buy-in. the positional captains, we had loads of discussions about where the team was headed and what things that we didn't like that were happening, and that some of those were purely player culture-led things. Some of those were things that the coaches were or weren't doing. And we got together with the coaches with kind of clear points, and we said, here's where we're at right now. Here's what we think needs to change. What do you guys need from us, and here's what we need from you. And that was a good it was a good chat that we had, and we came away from that and we got some clear directives. We put in some things. This was, back end of the season. We basically said to ourselves, right, we've got 4 games now to play, and we've got 4 aims.
Yeah.
And the first game on that list was Edinburgh away. And I, you know what, the aims that we had, we posted them on our offensive Facebook group so that all the players could then go and see those. So let me just very quickly go and find what they were, because we had offensive. We had clear directives for each individual game, a clear motivator.
Okay.
And I think Luke has shared this publicly himself. Okay, here we go. So 4 games. Game number 1, Edinburgh. It was win the North. And that's no disrespect to Sandwell, but Sandwell had, at this point of the year, shown what they were capable of, what they were going to be about this year. And I hope they do come back and improve. But we knew that if we won the Edinburgh game, even though there was still a game to play at Sandwell and we needed to win that game, we knew that if we beat Edinburgh away, we would win the North. So game number 1, Edinburgh away, win the North. Game number 2, Sandwell, earn your spot. And what that was we basically said, if you want to have an impact come the playoffs, then you need to show us in the build-up to the game and in the actual execution of the game that you deserve a spot on the playing roster, so to speak, for the playoffs. So that was that. We also had secret goals of basically the offense needed to score 50 odd points to make it 500 on the year, and the defense didn't want to concede any, and we managed to achieve those goals, fortunately.
Yeah, you did.
So then was Bristol. It was win our first Premiership playoff game, because we've obviously played 2 of those at London before and lost both of them. And then that 4th game was, win the national championship, show people that the North is far stronger than they think that it is. Yeah. So that's what we came away with. We came away with those goals and aims from those meetings with the coaches and with the positional captains and stuff like that, and basically came away with some clear plans around communication, around practice attendance, around practice punctuality and stuff like that. And then our 4 aims for each individual game. And it just allowed us to reset, refocus, and say all that stuff that we don't like particularly that's going on right now, we're going to hone that in. We're going to channel this into positivity, positive energy, and we're going to go on this 4-game streak now of making sure that we do things exactly as we want and plan.
Okay. And boy, that's a great sort of step by step to have it going by. So has there ever been has there ever been an athlete or a coach that you've looked up to as a role model that if you go to speak to them, they will always give you sound advice, and you just want to sort of try be like them in a sense? Is there 1 or 2 people that are like that?
So what I'll do is I'll probably name 2 people here. The first coach that you get some coaches who you feel like I'm playing for my coach. Like, I'm not just playing for myself, and I'm not just playing for my teammates, because that's what most people do. But sometimes you get a coach and you're like, I'm playing for him, because I respect this guy and I've got all the time in the world for him, and he puts his time and effort into me. So the first one is Simon Purcell, or Simmy as people know him. He was my defensive coordinator at Lancashire Wolverines Colts, and then he was my head coach at Lancashire Wolverines when we were in the Premiership. He's now defensive coordinator at Chester, and he is just the most passionate guy. You know, you can have a laugh and a joke with him, but he just put so much time and energy into football, and it was hard to come away from one of his talks or one of his speeches. As much as I tried to make him laugh while he was doing it, you know, it's hard to come away from it and not feel like I want to play for that guy. Like,
okay.
And the other guy is the offensive coordinator from Manchester, Luke Carlton. Basically, Luke is on another level to anybody I've ever experienced in 20 years of the sport. I first met Luke at UCLan University when he asked me if I would be interested in helping to set up the UCLan American football team. And he was kind of recently decided to retire because of multiple knee injuries. He's a few years younger than me, Luke. So I was still playing, and he was kind of learning and trying to develop as a coach. And he went and did a sabbatical year at North Texas University. And I think during that time, I think he watched a lot of college football, and he started to see how he could apply college football to his football knowledge and how he can make a good offense in the UK. He came back and he took on a coaching role at UCLan, and then eventually I graduated, stopped playing, and I became the head coach of UCLan. And I asked Luke to be my offensive coordinator, and he blew me out the water. Like, I've never seen a coach put in the level of work and detail that he does.
Wow.
I really do consider myself, you know, I live football. I'm obsessed with it, and I love it. And I watch so much film and stuff like that. Anytime I can get a little bit of knowledge, I'll take it. But Luke's the exact same. Like, he lives football, and he's incredibly passionate. He is, how to word this correctly? If you're on the opposing team, he's going to make sure that you know that he is beating you, or that you are not doing a good job. He was brutal in the national final to a couple of their players. Yeah, like, yeah, that's he. You know, and the thing is, right, is win or lose, he's kind of the same. Like, he's just like this fiery guy, and he would rather nobody knew his name. He doesn't want any recognition. He doesn't want any glory or anything like that. You don't see him on podcasts. You don't see his name being fired around. In the national final, it was really funny. They're talking about how much John Homer, who's our head coach, has done to improve this team and to do all this stuff for this team. And honestly, Homer has done wonders with that defense. He really has, and I'll take nothing away from him. But Homer does not touch the offense. He does not come close to it. It's Luke's baby, and Homer better not go anywhere near it. Luke is a genius. He is one of the most competitive people you could possibly hope to meet. And whether it's him driving us to be competitive, or whether it's me driving us to be competitive, I truly feel like I need to be the extension of Luke on the pitch. Like, I need to be the physical embodiment of Luke's mind on the pitch. And there's times when we've lost a game or I've performed badly, and I take losses bad. Like, I do not do well with a loss or a poor performance. And I've messaged Luke before and said, right, we lost to Yorkshire last week, Luke, and I'm still not out of this hole that I'm in. We've got 2 weeks before our next game. And I said to him, Luke, what can you tell me right now that's going to bring me out of this hole, that's going to give me the confidence I need to go? You know what? This season's not just going to be a total waste. And he can do it every time. He'll sit there and he'll tell every player why they are the best at what they do. He'll sit there and tell his offense why they're the best and all that kind of stuff. And he just fills you with this unbelievable confidence. And I think I probably got the bulletin board type stuff off him. He will find any way he can to be disrespected or disregarded. And so me and Luke are incredibly different people, but also when it comes to football, we're very similar.
Okay. Wow. Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's definitely worked hard for it. So
Oh,
might
yeah.
as well. Might as well. Talking about obviously like role models, has there been a player that you've played against that you enjoy playing against, but also hate playing against?
Oh, there'll be tons. God. Yeah, the
Is
whole
there more?
Tamworth defense. I'll tell you who. Will Hobbs for Tamworth. I absolutely love him. He is the most enjoyable person to be around. He's so full of energy. He's so hype. He's an incredible player, but I got no interest in seeing him. If he could be away for all of our games, but I could just spend time with him at GB and stuff like that, I'd love that. He's just a really fantastic athlete, and I got a lot of time and a lot of respect for him. And it's always good to know where Will is on the pitch, so I can either completely avoid him or be very careful.
Fair enough. Now we've done that. Let's talk about your starting 11 defensive players.
Okay. Right. So okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go my apex defender, so kind of like the linebacker safety hybrid who will play. If you were playing spread, he'd play between the slot and the tackle.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay.
That guy would be Sam Fossey.
Okay. Let's name off the board.
Yeah, so I used to play Sam Fossey when he played for Sheffield. I used to play against him. And he'll hate this. He'll hate it. We wiped the floor with him. Absolutely wiped the floor with him. We targeted him, and we made sure that we beat the living shit out of him. And he might come back at this and say, no, you didn't, or this is why that happened. But I think over the 2 years that we played Sheffield and he was the safety there, and I think he sometimes played corner there too, I think we scored about 5 or 6 touchdowns just solely over the top of him. However,
that's not going to go down well.
No, it's not at all. However, if you surround... I think defensive players especially, if you surround a quality defensive player with other quality defensive players and a good system, a good scheme or something like that, then they improve. And maybe Fossey was always that good. Maybe he was always that good and he just didn't have that supporting cast. No offense to Sheffield, but Sam Fossey's on another level, in my opinion. So just seeing Fossey play for us these past 2 years, he hits like a freight train. He's got such good instincts, such good smart. He's a fantastic leader. Just, lot of love, lot of time for Fossey. Even though he said that D for London was the best quarterback in the UK. So yeah, I don't forget Fossey. It's on the bulletin board, that Fossey. Free safety is a guy called Taylor Brown. He used to play. He's an American, and he came over, and maybe it was Derby back when Derby maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Derby was a big Prem team, and Taylor came over and played for Derby, and then he played for Leicester, and I don't think it's entirely possible that I've never played with or against a player as good as him, just overall.
Wow.
He is freakish, and I think that anybody from Leicester who's played with him or anybody who's played against him would very happily say that Taylor is one of the best players they've ever played with or against as well. He was just unbelievable. Our entire game plan playing Leicester was to stay away. They played too high. So whichever side he was on, we target the other side. And we had loads of success doing that. When he moved over, we started targeting the other side. And so the other receivers got their turn. But it was just stay away from Taylor Brown. And because they play one up too high, it's quite easy to do that, to stay away from him. So yeah, Taylor, unbelievable. He'll definitely be on Leicester's YouTube games over the past few years. But he's gone back to the States now.
Okay.
Okay. Inside linebacker. In fact, let me come back. Let me come back to that. Defensive end. There's a guy called Josh Vines who used to play for Birmingham. Oh, you know him? Yeah, you.
This man. No, I'm not gonna deny it. He is probably the one player that I never want to go up against as an O lineman. Sometimes, because I think I had to play center for Olympians the year that we went 0-10, and they decided to put him at nose.
Okay.
I snapped the ball. I'm going backwards. I'm just like, oh, okay.
Like, great. He's like 6'10". His arms are like the biggest things.
The ridiculous reach is.
I don't know if he's playing anymore. I know that he went to Potsdam for a little bit with David Saul, but yeah. I was watching a GB practice once, and they told the defensive players off for like tackling guys to the ground. So, and Josh wasn't happy about it. He was like, "What do you expect us to do?" Like, blah blah. You know, I know that constant battle between what on earth is thud.
Yeah.
And on a couple of plays later, Josh, the running back, runs through the hole. Josh picks up this running back, GB running back, not some small kid, picks him up, right? I swear he's holding him in one arm like this, and he just looks directly at the offensive coordinator who stood behind as he's tackled this running back for loss, and he just goes, "Is this okay? Is this all right?" Mid tackle, I was like, "You're an absolute freak. Stay away from me."
Freak.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, another guy, defensive end. I'm going to play him at linebacker. I think traditionally he is a defensive end, but I think London have been playing as a linebacker. His name's Niall Scott Grant, and he wears number 5.
Okay.
So
yes.
I played with Niall at GB under-19s, and he was playing defensive end at the time, and he was a better receiver than almost everybody we had there. He was a better running back than everybody we had there, better defensive end, linebacker. Like, incredible player.
Wow.
So I definitely want him on that defense somewhere. So I'll play him at inside linebacker. He might want to play defensive end more. I'm not sure. Cornerback. I will go with my boy Ricky from Manchester. He was the guy who's wearing number 1 in the national final. He's just a lockdown corner. Like, if there's a receiver that is a big problem, then we'll usually ask Ricky to play on his side. And he doesn't generally get beat deep. He's pretty aggressive coming down on the underneath stuff. He's a phenomenal athlete, phenomenal corner, really, really good. There's a receiver called Nigel Westbrooks who came over from the States, played for Merseyside last year, and he is an absolutely insane receiver. In fact, I think Nigel was... Oh no, I picked Dave Saul, didn't I?
Yes.
Nigel could very easily be in that starting receiver lineup, but yeah, Ricky pretty much shut Nigel down.
Wow.
It's like, basically, if we compare Nigel in terms of just relativity, he's obviously not Calvin Johnson, but if he's the Calvin Johnson of the league, if your cornerback gives up like 50 yards and no touchdowns, or like 10 yards and a touchdown, it's kind of a successful day. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what he managed to do against Nigel, that kind of performance. So, yeah, Ricky's just a baller, and I really hope that he gets his shot at GB soon. So that's corner gone. Okay, so I think we've got 3 defensive linemen left, and okay.
And an extra middle linebacker?
And, three defensive linemen. We've got kind of 2 linebackers, 1 hybrid safety kind of guy, corner, and okay. God, this is a tough question, man. I'm trying to think of D tackles who we've got at GB and stuff like that. You know, there's a guy who plays for GB. I think he lives in France, and I've not seen like an absolute ton of him, but I know that he does play for GB, and I've seen him at our practices before, and he's
I think
always
I know who you're.
his name's Johnny Ridge.
Yeah, Johnny, big Ridge, big
Johnny
Ridge. I know
Ridge,
him.
yeah. Did
I know
he
him
he
from
went
it.
to
He came.
Hurricanes?
Yep, he was at Hertfordshire. He's
Okay,
yeah.
so he's just like I'm led to believe that he's a really nice guy.
Oh, he's brilliant. Absolute.
Okay, so I've
Yeah.
never had a conversation with him, but he's just so fucking aggressive. Like he's constantly in my face at GB practice, and I'm like, "Will you leave me alone? Like, go away." Yeah, he's really aggressive. Like, I am struggling to think of people to put on there. So maybe if I had a really long think, but just off the top of my mind, Johnny Ridge is not a nice person to play against.
Okay.
Defensive end. I think he plays defensive end more than he plays tackle. His name is Arthur, and I can't pronounce his last name, so I'm not going to try. But it's spelt something like MBHAIN or AN. And he plays for Tamworth. He's one of the guys who's just gotten the NFL Combine
International.
invite. Yeah, I think. Where did he start? He's going to Nottingham this year as well. University of Nottingham. Yeah. So yeah, he's really funny to play against because he'll like get close to you and he'll be chatting and stuff like that, and you'll chat back to him, and then maybe he'll get you. I told him in the first game he didn't get any sacks against me, and he was adamant he did. Anyway, in the next game, I think he got like 3. So yeah, so he's fun to play against. He's a freakish athlete, really talented. Yeah, so I'll pick him. Okay. So the hybrid now this guy I'm talking about, he usually plays free safety, but it's my system, so I can play him however I want.
Yes,
so I'm going to play him as kind of more of a Sam Fossey would probably be the strong safety, I suppose, and he would probably play more of a bit of a free. And then you'd have Taylor in the middle. But I'll choose Alex Eager. He was a GB receiver throughout his time at Merseyside Nighthawks. And through chatting to me about him potentially coming to Manchester, he just said one day, "How would you feel about me playing safety?" And I thought, you know what? Eager's a very talented athlete. He's very rangy. We know he's got great hands. If he can tackle, if he's good in run support, then he'd be probably a great safety. He came along, and I don't care what the rest of the defensive players for Manchester say. In my opinion, Alex Eager is the biggest difference maker for our defense this year. He got a pick in the final, and he held up his shirt, and it had his children's name on it. And yeah, he does all the rangy safety stuff. But honestly, the amount of tackles that guy makes, 5, 6, 7 yards gain for the running back, but then immediately come to a halt. Like, it's really impressive, and it's really you can really rely on him to be a solid tackler. So Alex Eager is just. I'd love it if Alex Eager applied to go to GB to see what they think about him, because I'm obviously not like analyzing him in depth, but I feel like he'd potentially make that squad. He's a fantastic athlete, and he's been part of that GB setup before as a receiver. So yeah, really talented. The other corner. Gosh, this is tough,
isn't it?
This is very tough. Okay, so I've got a corner left, I've got an inside linebacker left, and I've got a nose tackle or a D tackle left. Okay, so inside linebacker, I'll go for. He didn't continue to play this position as he got older, but in fact, actually, let's just go for Nelson. Let's go for Nelson from Tamworth. No, scratch that. Sorry, Nelson. You're a great linebacker, but Ross from Edinburgh. He played for GB for years, and then I think he just sort of retired from GB football and just continued to play for Edinburgh. He wears number 33. I can't remember what his surname is. He moves so well. He read and reacts so well. I think he might be the only linebacker this year that we game planned for. That we, in our game plans, we'll highlight effective players and stuff like that. But it's more of just here's this guy and he's talented and be aware of that. We game planned for Ross specifically to make sure that he was taken care of, and he still made tons of plays.
No problem.
So Ross Young, I think his name is. Yeah, very, very good. I hope he retires. So that's him gone.
To be fair, I find it very interesting how when the defensive player goes to pick their 11, they always struggle with the offensive line because they're just like, I don't know their names. I just don't know their name. But when offensive players do it, it's just like, oh crap, here we go. Defensive line, I don't know many.
Yeah,
so.
I do a lot of research on my opponents and who people are. I like to know. Well, I suppose I like to know where they've come from, where they've played football, how experienced they are, how good they are. Like, I'll spend as much time stalking an opponent's defense as I will actually reading and reviewing their film.
Fair.
Okay. D tackle. I'm trying to think of who the GB D tackles are. Do you know what? I've got a list of the roster actually. Yeah. And that might help jog my memory.
Who's on there?
Where is it?
Who's actually on there? Because I know there's a couple Blitz guys, a couple Tamworth, I think, a Warriors guy.
Oh, here we go. So, defensive line. Okay. So, London Warriors have a defensive lineman called Rodon.
Okay.
And he's the guy who we game planned for when we went and played London Warriors the other week. We made sure that we took as best care of him as possible. He's a very, very talented guy. I have no idea how old or young he is. I have no idea where he's been before he played for London. But he plays for London now. He's very talented. Rodon Zeqiri, Zeqiri. Yeah.
Okay.
He's very good. And then we've got cornerbacks. Oh, this has jogged my memory. Okay. I'll go Tonye from Blitz.
Oh no, he's gonna love this. Oh.
Yeah. Well, he's also such a sound guy. From my experience, he might be a complete wanker, but
oh no, he is. He is a sound guy. But this is just gonna boost his ego just that bit much.
Oh yeah. Well, he deserves. I don't know. In my opinion, he deserves it. He comes down, he lays the wood. He's also a problem when I'm trying to get over the top of him. Yeah, he's really athletic. I can't stand the fact that he went to Lancaster University because there are somewhat our rivals at UCLan. But yeah, fair play to him. He's a very good athlete.
Okay, solid defense as well alongside that offense. Very, very solid. Cannot complain, and I guess everyone that got called out are going to love the reasons why as well.
I hope so. There'll be so many people who are left. Manchester guys, get out my DMs. I can't be bothered hearing you.
Oh, people are gonna definitely try harder
Oh,
in
they
a bit.
will. They will.
Okay. So we are in the older generation. That's for sure. We are
Yep.
past that time. But the way that the game has developed in the UK, you have NFL Academy, you have the NFL International Pathway Program, you have the CFL Global Combine now that comes here every year. Then you've got the opportunity to go to play in Germany or France or somewhere in Europe for their respective leagues. And then you can now have the European League of Football. How great is it to see that the game has grown, has it sort of exploded in a sense in Europe? Did you ever
Yeah,
think that you'd see something like that happen before?
well, when I first got started, NFL Europe was still around.
That is true.
Back when Frankfurt Galaxy and I think the Scottish Claymores had stopped by that point, but
Yeah.
like those teams were still knocking around and Rheinfire and so it was really exciting. I never sat there and thought, oh, I'll make it one day, but I did want to. And then the NFL Europe collapsed and there was nothing for years. There was nothing. I didn't hear about going and playing in Germany or anything like that. And then Bristol Pride started, and that was right around the time where I was just a bit too old for Pride. I was just going basically to university,
Yeah.
but I was skeptical. I was skeptical that it was going to work, and I'm glad I was wrong because as a bitter old man who never had these opportunities himself, NFL Academy. Can you imagine when we were? That's my dream to go and play there, or even to be able to go to Pride, the option of the ELF, it's incredible. I don't know if I never, you know what? No, I probably never thought that it would happen. I thought that football would just be what it was for those years where there was nothing. It would just be that amateur sport where there was never really any progression, never any pathways for players to get over to the States or Canada.
Yeah.
And now I'm a bitter, jealous, but supportive old man.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the one thing that I was trying to figure out because obviously we're not going to get opportunities to do any of that at all. We're the only way that we'll be get opportunities if we go coach. So that's
Exactly.
that's that situation. But now with all of these options happening, and you're seeing the kids from NFL Academy getting offers to D1 schools in America or D2 schools in America. How do you feel that the UK game will have to step up to try and keep some of these talented players in the UK if the league is to grow? Because again, most of us are all getting to that age where not a lot of us are going to be playing for in the next 10 years, probably won't be playing.
Yeah, well, it either has to, otherwise it's just going to stay this, and then all of our players are going to go off. The national program will suffer and struggle. I was at the town hall meeting with Pete Ackley and listening to what he says, and I've got a lot of time for what Pete's saying. One of the main points that he was pushing was basically that. This is his first proper season of football because when he came into power, it was COVID year.
Yeah.
And so he didn't get to see or do his job properly. Then he had the COVID year, which, obviously he got to do some bits, but it's not our football as we know it, And he came into it and he's like, I can't explain the reason why BAFA do some of the things that they do, nor am I going to try and justify or defend or attack it necessarily. It's a governing body. There will always be things that they should be critiqued for because we're the members and we hold them to account. But I like the direction that Pete wants to take it in. He wants to get that serious funding. He wants to get that serious sponsorship. And I believe that's the main focus of what he's doing to try and turn our league somewhat similar to what we're seeing in Europe. We're way behind and he recognizes it. So we either catch up and we gain that funding, we gain that sponsorship, or it will just it will probably get worse. There'll be more opportunities for people to go stateside, more opportunities that crop up, more programs and things like that. And it will just be another place where young people go to leave the UK.
Yeah, yeah. And it kind of makes the game sort of, it makes you question on where we're going to go going forward, because no one wants to stay and pay to play anymore. That's what it looks like it's going to turn out to be.
If I'm a young person in the UK, I'm not thinking, oh gosh, I can't wait to go and play for London Warriors. I can't wait to go and play for the Manchester Titans. Yeah, that might be something that helps you get to where you want to be, but that's not where your ultimate goal is right now. But it should be. We should be able to give these people the offer of coming and playing, earning money, giving them further opportunities to grow and develop both as players, but also potential career pathways. That's what it should be. And like you said, we're not going to get that. We might be part of a coaching setup that does that, or a managerial setup, but it's not for us now. Now it's really down to us to hold the league to account, to volunteer our time, to do whatever we can do, to make sure that, you know, these young people have the opportunity to go on to do fantastic things within our country, within our sport, you know.
Yeah, I agree 100%, because it would be a shame if the game was to just die out.
Even if it doesn't die out, you know, at the minute we're somewhat stagnant. Like there's no real progression at the minute, and so you've got these fantastic opportunities: NFL Academy, NFL International Pathway Program, Bristol Pride, you know, where people are going and getting these scholarships and getting these opportunities. There needs to be a domestic opportunity.
Yes. Yeah, there has to be some sort of reason. There has to be some sort of reason to keep them here, other than them looking for somewhere else to go and play.
Exactly.
Is 100% understandable. Right. So now I've avoided it for so long. Now let's talk about that final.
Okay.
Let's talk about that final. What was your feeling the moment you woke up that day? That day you woke up, because I know some of you came down in the morning, some of you came down on the Friday night.
Yeah.
What did you do? Did you come down with the team, or?
I travelled down with a few members of the team in a car on Saturday morning.
Oh.
It was about a 4-hour drive, and I didn't think it was that bad. So I decided to come down in the morning. I had thought about coming down the night before, but just the logistics of staying in a place. You know, Tottenham were playing the same day, so prices and all kind of stuff like that. So I just made the decision to come down on the day. Yeah.
Okay.
And you so you want to know how I was feeling?
Oh yeah. How was their nerves? Were you just antsy and just ready for the game to go?
So I think, so me personally, as I said to you before, I had 2 bad weeks leading up to Bristol. Like I didn't get my prep right. I did too much. I know that sounds really stupid, or like I'm being egotistical or something like that, but it messed me up, and it had the wrong effect on me. And so I just went to my normal routine when we were preparing for London, and I came away from that, and I had the normal anxiety that you would have ahead of just a big game. You know, I don't have that level of anxiety when I'm going to play, you know, Sandwell, for example, in the second game, because I know their level, I know where they're up to currently. Yeah. I know that we have aims to achieve, but it's not the same. This was the same level of anxiety as going to play like Tamworth. And so I didn't try to like lie to myself or distract myself or anything. I just felt better about this game than I'd had about Bristol. London played a defense that we knew that we could have success with as long as we executed. And so you get the normal nerves and stuff. I've played in 2 championship games before. And so they're not exactly, foreign ground for me. I'm also a player who, Luke Carlton always puts this really well. Be your type of person, be who you are before a game. Don't feel like you have to conform to a certain attitude or style. We got players who want to run through a brick wall before a game, and they're screaming and banging helmets and stuff like that, and that works for them, so they do that, and no one tries to stop them or tell them to do otherwise. We also have players who laugh and joke and who are very stoic, and I'm one of those players who is calm and who likes to be reserved, not reserved necessarily, because it's not like I'm not talking, but I'm just calm before a game, and I like to think about and visualize, what's going to happen and stuff like that. And so, I would say that if normal level of anxiety, is, I don't know, an arbitrary number, is 5 before a game, then before the national final, I was at a 7. Whereas before Bristol, I was at a 9. So I felt good. I felt confident, but I was also obviously very aware of the moment.
Yes. Okay. And obviously when I can't remember if you lot started with the offense first.
Yeah, we did.
And I did ask Sam, like, at what point did you lot feel like this game was yours? You lot were in this game, and everyone started to get really hyped up. And Sam did say it was from the hurdle from your running back. From that moment he hurdled the defensive player. Everyone was just like, okay, hold up.
Yeah,
this is ours.
I think me and Sam Fossey, we'd had a chat, and we were concerned that, not through anything that people had said or done, but just through kind of assuming that it's the natural thing to be, is we were concerned that people on the team were scared, and that they were worried, and that perhaps they thought they were out of their depth. And again, no one said anything to suggest that necessarily. It was just more a case of that would be the expected thing, when you're going to play the London Warriors. And so we made sure regularly to let people know that they should not be, fearful of them. And when we came out and we were juicy and hyped up, and London were calm, and they do that thing where they walk out and they stare at your sideline and try to intimidate you. You could see it on the photos and on the stream. I'm staring directly straight forwards with a big smile on my face. I'm happy that they're doing that, because we're doing what we do and being juicy and hyped up, and they're doing what they do. And then we go and get the Tom Jones hurdle, and, you get our juicy hyped up sideline, and I'm like, okay, yeah, we're rolling. We're doing good here. And, I think for me, there's 2 different moments. There's the moment where I thought things are going to plan. Things are going really well. And that was the drive where we scored our first touchdown. We drove the ball down the field, and we were, dunking and dinking and dunking the ball down the field, little runs here and there. And they didn't have like a consistent answer for what we were doing. And we're happy to play whatever it is that they want us to play. If they want us to take the deep balls, we'll take them. If it's underneath or if it's run plays, we'll do that. It's all based on what they're trying to take away.
Yes.
So after that first touchdown drive, came to the sideline and sat there talking to Luke Carlton, the offense coordinator, and one of my other coaches, saying it's going exactly to plan. They're doing exactly what we wanted them to. And we're having success on the things that we knew that we would. And then I won't talk about how we felt at halftime, unless that's something you asked me about, because they just scored their touchdown just before the half.
Yes.
And
I remember that.
Yeah, so then the second half was a moment where you can just about see it on the footage. I point to my finger like this to a player. So basically, we're in the fourth quarter, and we take a deep shot towards where the camera is on the camera's sideline. Take a deep shot, and it just falls about 5 yards incomplete over the top of our receiver's head. And he needed a rest because we'd absolutely, burnt him.
Yeah.
And so we put in another receiver who is probably the fastest player on our team, Ben Martin, number 11. And the cornerback was initially playing off. And the cornerback turns to the safety signals and says this. Which says to everybody, I'm going to press him. So we all see this. And Luke Carlton sees it. And someone says, I think someone says to Luke, or maybe he decides on his own, we're going to run the same play again. Because they're going to press our fastest receiver. So we ran it, bombed the deep ball. Ben ended up catching it, probably about a 30-yard gain. And just as Ben's getting up, as I said, we're in the fourth quarter, I just shouted over to him. He turned to me and I just pointed at my finger and just said, that's the championship right there. Like, that was the point where I knew. And until that point, other people might feel differently. Until that point, I was not in the mind frame of, we're doing really well, we're going to win this game. I was in the mind frame of, we need to continue to be aggressive. We cannot survive London. You don't survive London. No offense to Tamworth from the game prior, but you were there.
Yeah.
They maybe tried to survive London. I don't know if their play calling became more conservative, or what happened specifically. I'm not in their coach's room or anything like that, but we knew that based on the fact that London were, Tamworth were 21 points up, we found ourselves in the exact same situation.
Yes.
And we were like, we will not. We weren't stood there on the sideline saying, we won't do a Tamworth, we can't do a Tamworth. We have a thing about our club. We say we make it about us. It's never about another team or another person. It's always about us.
Yeah.
And we came away from it and we just basically said, we cannot survive this game. We have to win this game.
Okay. So
that was the moment where I became a bit more like, we're going to win this.
Okay, so that explains it. So when they scored just before halftime, what was going through your head there? Because everyone saw it, because for some reason, as soon as it hits the third quarter, Warriors just always came back. They always came back. They did it against Tamworth. They scored what, three touchdowns in the second half against Tamworth and just ran away with it. They did it in every other game in the league. Like second half, like against Bristol, it was a dogfight between Bristol until the third quarter. Then they started to take control. Did you feel that if they started to get on a road, that it could have turned out to be a very different story?
Yeah, so it sounds really silly to say, but I was so focused on the offense that when they scored, I don't think I had any thoughts or any emotions or any feelings. I was just thinking, right, we've got about maybe like 40 seconds left in the half. Do we try and go for this here, or do we, just take a knee? And obviously they pinned us back quite deep on the kick return, and we decided to take the knee. And at half time, there was no time to talk about what had just happened, about them scoring a touchdown. We knew that it was a blown coverage, that it was just a defender in the wrong place, doing slightly the wrong thing. But offensively, because we'd been moving the ball so well, in our huddle, there was still this enormous confidence. So whereas the defensive huddle may or may not have been a bit more like, okay, boys, this happened and it's shit, but we need to get back on the horse. We need to get back on the momentum. Offense was still riding the momentum from scoring 3 first half touchdowns. We should have scored 4, but one of our receivers dropped a ball in the end zone. Yeah. So we're in a situation where we're like, we could have come out that half with 4 offensive touchdowns, and we know that Well, we had a really good idea about what their plan B would be. So we'd worked out what plan A was, because that's the defense they'd run for most of the year. And we figured that with our game plan, when they start adjusting to what we do, they're going to make these not huge, but slight adjustments. And that's exactly what they did. They made those adjustments. So they went to plan B. And I would say we went to plan 1B as opposed to B, because it was still well within our game plan. We'd prepared for it. Okay, we're in practice, we're in scout situations. We say, right, we've scored a couple of touchdowns on London now. They've started to make these adjustments. Our scout defense would make those adjustments, and we would then practice against those adjustments. So, yeah, I assume Sam Fossey is confidence epitomized, embodied. So he would never in a million years ever say that there was ever any worry or anything like that. But maybe that defensive huddle was a little bit more like, oh, I'm not sure. But from my perspective, looking around, talking, the vibe in the offensive huddle, there was no real panic or worry, because we still felt really prepared, and we still felt like we were riding high.
Okay. Yeah. And then obviously that final pick six that got ran in for a touchdown, I saw the whole entire sideline just blow up. The whole, even the crowd just blew up. Were you shocked at the amount of support that you had behind you? That the whole stands were wanting Manchester to win that. Were you shocked by that, or were you expecting it?
So there was obviously a large Manchester contingency there, and I know that when we've played in the 2017 national final that we got quite a large crowd there, but that was closer to home, so that was to be expected. I really wasn't sure what crowd we'd get, and I was expecting somewhat a hostile crowd towards us, to be honest, because we're in London. So surprised is the wrong word, because we travel well, and it was, and of course our fans came, but I wasn't certain that they would. I wasn't definite. I wasn't like, oh, we'll get a big crowd there. I did think that it would be mostly London support. However, when you're the top dog, like London have been, everybody wants you to fail. So people might not have come because they just expect London to win. I don't know if London Warriors have a huge fan base, to be honest, because they don't do lots of stuff on social media. I imagine that their fan base is mostly made up of people who play for London within other teams, like London Warriors, the women's team, and maybe just former players and coaches. So I expected to see a lot more London support in the crowd. However, I don't know if London have a big fan base. Yeah, our crowd at our home game against Bristol, that was huge. That was bigger than the finals crowd, the one that we had at Bristol, or against Bristol, should I say? And that was, 90. That's harsh, actually. 75% Manchester fans. Bristol got a good few people there, to be honest. But yeah, surprised, yes and no.
Okay. Wow. All right. And then obviously the whistle goes, the game's done. You lot are officially the champions, and they name you the MVP. Now, how did you feel at that moment? The moment they announced that you were the MVP of the championship game, was it wonderful, amazing? Did you cry? Because I didn't actually get close enough to actually see any tears or anything.
I mean, yeah, it feels awesome. It's strange, and I've talked to people from other teams and people from our team who've won a national championship before, and their experiences when they won or when we won as a team. And so many people showed emotions differently to what they had expected. At Bristol, I felt like I'd cost us the game, and then we did enough to secure that game. And so I was very emotional after that game. Going to a Brit Bowl final, feeling like I'd cost us the game, coming back, doing enough to help my team to win. I was emotional after the game, and in fact, one of the best pictures I've ever had taken of me in a game got taken that game, and I've got a flag draped around my body, and I'm on the floor, emotional, and the flag says "Forever Manchester," which is our mantra. And someone actually, as a surprise, painted it for me the other day.
I think I've seen that.
Have you seen it on my Instagram? Can I show you it really quick?
Yes.
I've got it on my wall, so.
Huh.
So a young person who I work with just painted this for me.
Yeah, that picture is cold. I'm not gonna. That is a very cold picture. Yeah.
And so, yeah, like I just had, and lots of other people did too, like so many emotions after that Bristol game. And obviously people were emotional after the London game as well, but it was weird. I expected myself to get emotional, but I didn't at all. I was kind of like, I was obviously elated. I was really happy and I felt really proud, and I wanted to stay on that pitch forever and talk to everybody and talk to all the fans who'd come along and stuff like that. And obviously I was so happy to receive that MVP award. I used to get a plate, but now you get one of the game balls. So bear in mind that I see these twice a week. So getting one of these is perhaps not as. Thank you, BAFA, anyway, for the ball. I appreciate it. But I was elated. I was happy, but I expected myself to be like more emotional or more like just in awe of the moment. And so many people I've spoke to, and myself included, have just basically described it as, I don't even know if it's set in yet. Like
Sam said the exact same thing. He still hasn't actually come to thought that you lot are champions.
Like I feel happy about it, and I know that we're the champions, and I know that we won that game, and that now we're the top dog, and everyone will hate us now. But yeah, maybe this is just it. I asked Jason Scott, actually. I said, Did your emotions ever change towards it? Did one day you just go, oh my God, we did it? And he was like, no, it was just, you just kind of move on to the next season, which sounds crap, doesn't it?
Yes.
Sounds
it does. It
awful.
Does.
Like, I want to have that moment where I go, we did it. And if I want to get emotional or if I want to scream or whatever it is, but I just think, don't get me wrong, my mood over the past few weeks has certainly been very good.
Yeah.
But I expected some kind of big reaction, but there isn't one.
Maybe it will happen when you all actually open your rings together at the awards night.
That is what I'm hoping for. I'm in the process of designing the rings.
Ooh.
So we are midway through that process. It's going well. I don't want to speak too soon, but we may have the best ring that a Brit Bowl champion has ever had. We'll see what they look like. I'm excited about what these rings are going to look like.
Wow. Okay. Just a little exclusive. Could I get the picture first before anyone else gets to see it?
Absolutely not.
Oh,
the players would kill me. But what I will do. Oh, you won't expose it? Okay.
No, I won't expose it. I won't.
Maybe we'll send you some concept art instead. our graphic design guy who does all of our socials, Alex Cooper, he's doing all the graphic side of things. But the players are going to be purchasing the rings without seeing anything to do with them, which is a lot of faith to put into us. But I just want that moment where we're at the awards do and nobody's seen it, and they open it and they're just blown away.
Wow. Yeah,
so
that's gonna be a great
fingers
moment.
crossed we get that emotion, that emotional moment there. Yeah.
To be honest, you probably will, because everyone you're seeing the ring, it's the official championship. It's the official championship. Yeah, I had to.
Exactly. Don't worry, I've got my Div 1 upstairs.
You've just got sometimes you just look at it. Sometimes, I'm not gonna deny it, I sit there and I just look at it and I'm just like, I remember that season. I remember that season so well, because I remember every single game. I remember every tackle I made. I remember every sack I got. Everything about it, I just remember. I remember the game against Loughborough that we played for that. It was like, I just remember every single aspect of that season, and that's what you lot are probably going to feel. Every time you look at it as well.
When I've got that Div 1 ring, and from time to time, like, it's just sat in a box like on display, and I'm like, I want to wear it, and it's weird. You know, my girlfriend doesn't fully understand. She's like, "Why are you wearing your ring?" And I'm like, I just want to wear it. I just love it. I want to wear it. It's like reminiscing with the award on your hand, because that's all the ring is. It's your individual award.
Yes.
And so it's just exactly like when you put in that level of work. Like, I've never heard of a national champion at whatever level it is, university, Division 1, Division 2, like, not just coasting and winning a national championship. You don't coast.
You can't.
Like,
you can't do that.
Like, it's just doesn't happen. So, yeah, every now and again, if you're watching this now and you've got a ring at home, go and put it on. It'll make you feel better.
Oh yeah, you'll definitely just sit there, just be like, I feel good. I do feel good. I do feel good. I think there are a couple of people that I do taunt about it because they've never seen a final. So it's just like, well, I've been there twice. It's okay with me.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, 4 times. That's a lie. 4 times. But yeah.
You would Blitz Blitz Juniors.
Yeah.
Hearts.
Hurricanes again, and then the Olympians of 2017.
Okay. So
Yeah.
Hurricanes, the one that you didn't win, was that the famous one where Johnny Glover ran into the end zone in slow motion?
Don't remind
Birmingham
me,
Lions.
Please. Yes, don't remind me, because I remember that game specifically because that was the first year Bucks. That's the first year that Bucks had actually taken over the sport.
Oh yeah.
So we had won the last BAFA league, and then Bucks came in the next year, and then I remember that game specifically because it was the last drive that they had. The referee got involved had ran into a coach. So then he had warned the coach already, and then ran into the coach again, and then tacked on 15 yards.
Oh my god!
So it basically put them in front of the end zone. And I remember trying to get to the outside, and then their tight end had sealed in our outside linebacker, and I just saw him just glide, just run into the end zone.
Yeah, iconic video that of him in slow motion. But obviously, unfortunately, you're on the other end of it. I'm good friends with Johnny Glover, who was that quarterback for that year. So I see him semi regularly. Very good guy. But I'm sure you could do without him.
Yes. But hey, you live and you grow from those experiences, which everyone needs to do. So obviously being MVP, lights out, great season. If your players and coaches were to describe you in one word, what would they describe you as?
Oh gosh. I suppose they'd probably use some way to describe like me being committed or dedicated or something along those lines. Like, I don't miss practice. I think in the 5 years I've been there, I probably missed maybe 2 handfuls of practices. We practice 2 times a week. So to miss maybe even 10 to 15 practices in 5 years is not very many. And yeah, just like I said, I kind of live it. Like, it's more of a job than my actual job.
Yeah.
And so, Yeah, I imagine that they'd use some kind of word to describe my level of commitment or my level of desire.
Okay.
But my favorite word that I've been described is actually by Jason Scott, GB head coach. As I said, me and Jason talk from time to time, and he's really supportive of me, even though we're big rivals. And he has always basically said that Sam Bloomfield is a winner. Like that's an awesome thing to be able to
Yes.
have a rival coach, especially of that caliber. To say this guy just finds a way to win. Like he always said, he gave me one of my favorite things that I use and say about myself is that I'm not a quarterback, I'm a football player, and he said that to me. So yeah, that was really cool.
Nice. And what would you describe yourself as in one word?
Obsessed.
Okay.
Like
Okay.
it's an obsession, and so everything that comes along with that, the good and the bad.
Okay. And for anyone that's trying to start playing at university, trying to play in the senior league, or just trying to pick up the game as a starter, what's your advice that you'll give to them?
Stick it out, because it all seems like it's going really fast right now and you cannot keep up with it at all. I remember when I first started playing 11-a-side football after I'd been playing 5-a-side for years, and I was lost. Everything was moving so quickly. I couldn't locate the ball. Like it just takes that time to get used to it. And as with anything, the more you put into something, the more you will get out. So if you go to practice once a week and don't watch any film or anything like that, then it's going to take a long time. But if you kind of commit yourself and dedicate your time to understanding, if you speak to people who play football, about football, away from football, everything begins to get easier. Everything begins to make sense. And ultimately, when you're on that pitch, everything is so fast to start with. You get halfway through your first year and you've dedicated that time. Everything slows down. You start to see things happening. You start to be able to predict things and read things. So yeah, just stick it out. Like it is so fun. And at whatever level you want to play at, if it's purely for recreation, go and have fun and do that. If you want to play at the top level, then that takes obsessive levels of work. But yeah, it's just crazy rewarding. Like my whole life is designed around football. My career came from football. All of my friends are from football. So yeah, it's just such an awesome community. It can be such an awesome community.
Yeah.
It's not always. I saw someone
is
giving you some shit for not having an elevated camera at London's pitch, where nobody has ever had an elevated camera ever.
No, the thing is here that person, I wanted to be toxic and just literally cuss them out, but I was like, you know what? Let me leave it. I'm too old to be getting into no online arguments with anybody. Let me just say a nice, easy, simple comment that's basically telling you to fuck off, but not actually saying fuck off. So I just left it at that. I was like, I don't really get what it. What was the point? But I left it. Yeah. But yeah, I saw that. I was just like, whatever.
Everyone's a critic.
Yeah. Oh God. You actually just drew out so much memories about that. Just that little thing. Just that little thing of how pissed off I was with it. So your goals for you've got your uni season coming up. What are your goals for your uni team at the moment?
We're in a really strong position to potentially get promoted back to Division 1, which is where we were for so many years and where we had success. We were in the playoffs every year there. And then things just happened. Players left, and I think that the culture after I left UCLan, the culture wasn't what I would have had in place, and I think that some of that harmed the team and things like that, and so they dropped down to Division 2. where last year we made the playoffs. And yeah, it's a strong division, but I also think that we're in a strong place to put ourselves in a good spot to potentially get promoted. The aim really for me, I came in with a 3-year plan to get us promoted, and this is year 2. So the aim really for me is to do better than what we did last year, which last year we finished 3rd place in our division and made the playoffs. We just scraped into the playoffs. Obviously, any progression on that is what I want.
Okay. And for your 2023 senior season, are you looking for a back-to-back?
It's got to be. Got to run it back. Like, I mean, Luke Carlton, our offensive coordinator, talked about it sort of mid-season, and he was like, we don't want to be a team that wins a national final and then relaxes, or loads of our players retire and we're like, well, it's fine, we won our national final now, we've proved our point, or whatever it is. Like, we want the dynasty. Like, we want to have what the London Olympians had for years, what London Blitz had for years, what London Warriors have had in recent history. Like, we want to be that team that people say they dominate British American football. And at some point, that might turn into a semi-professional or a professional league. We want to be well within that conversation. Our coaches are currently trying to talk to Pete Ackley about us going to Europe this year and doing, the Champions League thing that Warriors did and then Tamworth did.
Yeah.
They want that. And so the aspirations are enormous. Whether it happens or not, because I don't think it's happened for a few years, I'm not entirely sure. But, I think that our goal at the start of this year was to win a national championship. And we talked about, trying to get onto a dynasty. And I realize that that's 3 wins before you're at a dynasty.
Yes.
But more so, and we're not looking ahead to our 3rd year. We're fully focused on pre-season camp 2023, However, I think it just shows the level of aspiration. We're not just sat there thinking, okay, well, what's next? It's more a case of what's next and how do we get to where it is that we want to be.
Yeah.
So recruitment has already started.
Whew.
We recruit
Big.
immediately. Yeah, it never stops. In season, it never stops. So off season, it's on.
I've heard that you lot recruit very, very well.
Yeah.
I heard that you're the main recruiter for a couple defensive players.
I think that the people in the northwest of forget the northwest, the north of the country, know how many DMs I usually send. I spend an obscene amount of time researching people, recruiting people. And the thing is people think that it's snaky behavior. If you're signing a professional contract, then yeah, that's pretty dodgy behavior. But this is an amateur sport. And if people want to develop, if people want the best chance to succeed, they will go to the team that gives them the opportunity to do that. We have fantastic coaches. We're just coming off a national final. I will get in contact with anybody and everybody. And if they say to me, I'm going to stick it out with my current team, I'll say, okay, fair enough. It's not like people occasionally, not always, but very occasionally will react like negatively to it. To like, how dare you be asking me to leave my team? And I'm thinking, there's no, you don't need to be that bitter about it.
Yeah,
I clearly rate you.
You're registered for a year to your team. Then once that year is done, your insurance technically finishes and you have to re-register.
Yeah.
So there's no harm in going to any taster sessions for other teams.
Exactly. One thing I don't do is I don't try to get people to transfer mid-season.
Ooh.
Once they've committed to their team, if someone signs for the Merseyside Nighthawks or for the Sheffield Giants or for the Lancashire Wolverines, I don't then message people once they're in the middle of their season saying, oh, how would you feel about coming over? The only time that things like that happen is if somebody shows me that they either have an interest in moving this year or that they are currently unhappy on their team.
Yeah.
That's the
Okay.
only time when I'll ever be like, well, have you thought about transferring? Other than that, it's always off-season stuff, or it's always, well, next year, things like that. But there'll always be people who don't like it because you're obviously taking players away from their squad. But
Yeah.
the way that we see it is there are two types of people in this world. There are the people who are trying to help the Manchester Titans win a national championship, and there is literally everybody else.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Oh my gosh, it has been a crazy 2.5 hours. And Sam, you have been a delight to be on the show today. I just want to say thank you again for taking the time and speaking to me. Your entire career at playing this game has been insane.
It's been a
Insane.
ride, yeah.
Yes, it has. QB by accident, finding American football by accident, just by luck, everything's just falling into your plate. Beat the first team to beat the Warriors since 2017. Now that is that is definitely a great one.
Yeah, some other interesting facts. 1990 was the last time Manchester team won a national final at the highest level, which was the year I was born.
Manchester Spartans, correct?
Manchester Spartans, or is it the All Stars? One of those two. Spartans, I think you're right.
Yes.
And the last time Manchester won a national championship at any level was 2017.
Yes.
Which was the year of the Manchester bombings, the arena bombing. Right. This year was the 5-year anniversary of that, and we won a national championship this year too. Yeah, so, wow. Yeah, if people believed in, if you're a person who believes in fate or kind of anything like that, or then maybe that's something that you would look at and think, wow, that's quite convenient. That, but. Yeah, it's been a ride, and it's at 32 years old. It's not over yet.
No, okay. Well, another 5 more years.
Oh,
get 5 more rings.
I don't know. If I could get a full hand, that'd be cool. But we'll. Tom Brady said his favorite ring is the next one, so I suppose I'll steal that and hope. So.
But again, thank you, Sam, for literally spending the time and talking about football and reliving the past year itself. And I hope that your uni season is going to be great. And I will definitely be seeing you mid-uni season. And obviously, pre-season next year. Hopefully, I get an invite to the Manchester Titans to do media. No.
Open invite, always. Yeah, of course, man.
But thank you again. And everybody, I will see you for the next episode of Unheard Voice. And I don't know who it is yet, but it'll definitely be an interesting one. Thank you.